It was a warm summer in Atlanta in 2021 when a young woman named Tiana Morrow quietly went about her life, working steady shifts at a small salon on Edgewood Avenue. Tiana was known for her dedication, her professionalism, and the way she kept her personal life private. At just 29, she had built a routine that gave her stability and purpose. Those who sat in her chair remembered her as focused and reliable, the kind of person who carried herself with quiet strength. Outside of work, she was also a part of a weekly support group, a safe space where people searching for stability in housing, employment, or recovery could share their journeys. It was there, in the late summer months, that she first crossed paths with a man named Leonard Graves. Leonard was 34, freshly released on parole after serving 8 years in prison for armed robbery. He was under strict supervision, regular check-ins, curfew, mandatory counseling, and a requirement to find steady employment. In the group, he spoke carefully, presenting himself as a man eager to change, eager to start fresh. He talked about warehouse job applications, his newfound connection to a church, and how he was trying to avoid the company of old associates. To those around him, he appeared polite, even distant, someone who wanted to look forward rather than dwell on the past. Tiana and Leonard began to talk outside of those meetings. At first, it was light, casual conversation. But by midsummer, their connection grew, and they exchanged numbers. Soon, daily calls turned into evenings spent together. By the fall, Leonard was no longer just a part of her evenings at restaurants or quiet nights in her apartment, he was living there. Apartment records listed Tiana as the sole tenant, but neighbors noticed Leonard's presence becoming permanent. While he seemed like he was rebuilding his life, probation notes from his counselors painted a different picture. He struggled with anger, often clashing with group facilitators. Tiana knew his past, but she told coworkers she believed in second chances. She wanted to stand by him. But behind closed doors, the cracks began to show. By late 2021, neighbors in the apartment complex started noticing arguments, the sounds of shouting, doors slamming late at night. No one called the police then, but tension was becoming impossible to ignore. And then, in January of 2022, in a quiet civil ceremony attended by few people, Tiana and Leonard were married. No family from Leonard's side showed up. From that moment, co-workers saw something change in Tiana. The once steady, confident woman now seemed tense, distracted. And more troubling, Leonard started showing up at the salon, waiting silently as she worked, watching, as if keeping an eye on her. Employees grew uncomfortable, but when they asked, Tiana only shrugged, saying Leonard didn't like her being away for too long. Family tensions mounted. Leonard's relatives openly rejected his marriage to a transgender woman. His cousin later admitted Leonard complained constantly about the ridicule and judgment he faced from his own family. Isolated from them, he grew more dependent on Tiana, and the strain inside their apartment deepened. The turning point came in February. On the night of February 10, 2022, neighbors heard loud shouting from Tiana's apartment. One described the sound of furniture smashing against a wall, then a heavy thud, followed by a door slamming. Police were called, but when they arrived, the building was quiet. No one answered the door, and with nothing visible from the outside, officers left without forcing entry. 4 days later, on February 14, the situation escalated in a way no one could ignore. That night, just before 11, multiple residents reported screaming, crashing noises, and chaos coming from Tiana's unit. This time, officers forced their way inside. The apartment was a scene of destruction, furniture overturned, broken glass scattered across the floor, streaks of blood on the wall. Leonard was standing near the entrance, sweating heavily, insisting that Tiana had stormed out after an argument. But on the floor lay her wallet, her phone, her keys, everything she would have needed if she truly left. The evidence suggested something far darker. Detective Darius Holt of the Atlanta Police Homicide Division took the lead. The apartment was secured and combed for evidence. Technicians photographed every corner, documenting overturned furniture, blood stains, and something chilling, white patterns revealed by luminol, clear signs of an attempted cleanup. A palm print lifted from a hallway wall matched Leonard's. The story he told, that Tiana had simply cut herself on glass and left, was already unraveling. Detectives pressed Leonard in questioning, but he stuck to his account, repeating it almost word for word. But when investigators turned to outside evidence, the cracks became undeniable. Surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store showed Leonard at 2 in the morning, dragging what looked like a long, heavy object wrapped in a dark sheet out of the apartment building. He struggled to get it into the trunk of his Dodge Charger before driving off into the night. Inside that trunk, investigators later found traces of blood, matched by DNA to Tiana. Witnesses added even more. A 72-year-old neighbor recalled seeing Leonard late that night with what she thought was trash, but the weight of it struck her as odd. Another neighbor swore they heard the distinct sound of duct tape being pulled, again and again. The mounting evidence made it impossible to believe Leonard's version of events. GPS records from his phone told an even clearer story, placing him south of Atlanta in an industrial area along Old National Highway in the early hours of February 15. And then came the discovery. That same morning, sanitation workers stumbled on a tarp hidden under construction debris. Inside was Tiana's body. She had been strangled. The medical examiner later confirmed her hyoid bone was fractured, classic evidence of manual strangulation. Defensive wounds showed she had fought back. The tarp fibers matched rolls found in Leonard's apartment closet. Duct tape recovered at the scene carried his fingerprints. Piece by piece, the case was tightening around him. Detectives dug deeper into Leonard's digital life. On his phone, deleted searches appeared, bleach removed DNA, how long bruises show after choke, and chillingly, how long does GPS save location? Even more disturbing, they uncovered a deleted audio note in which Leonard rehearsed the very story he told police. She cut herself and ran. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment excuse, it was preparation. Receipts showed that just hours before Tiana's death, Leonard had purchased a tarp, duct tape, and gloves at a hardware store. Surveillance confirmed it. To prosecutors, this was no accident, no sudden loss of control, it was premeditation. His parole records painted the same picture of instability. Missed counseling, aggression toward staff, warnings piling up. To those closest to Tiana, the pieces all made sense now, the tension, the fear in her eyes at work, the arguments late at night. Investigators questioned Leonard's cousin, Byron Tate, who at first lied, claiming Leonard was with him that night. Phone records proved otherwise. When confronted, Tate admitted Leonard had called him just after midnight, saying, "I'm done talking." The next day, Tate received $200 from Leonard through a cash transfer labeled gas. But investigators found no evidence Tate helped hide the crime. It was Leonard alone. The case built itself like a puzzle clicking into place. The violent fight inside the apartment, the attempt to clean up, the tarp and tape purchased in advance, the body carried out and hidden in a remote industrial lot. Leonard's own phone betrayed his movements. His searches betrayed his intent. His fingerprints betrayed his touch. By February 16, just one day after Tiana's body was found, Leonard was under arrest for murder, concealment of a death, and tampering with evidence. At trial, prosecutors presented the case with precision. The medical examiner described in detail how Tiana died, the pressure to her neck, the defensive wounds on her arms, the struggle she had fought to survive. A forensic analyst walked jurors through Leonard's phone records, his chilling searches, and the deleted memo rehearsing his lie. Jurors saw footage of him buying the tarp, of him dragging a heavy bundle from the apartment, of his car traveling south that night. They saw the fibers, the fingerprints, the stains of blood. Leonard's cousin testified reluctantly about the phone call and the money transfer. Jurors heard the evidence layered piece by piece until there was no doubt what had happened. The defense tried to argue provocation, that this was a sudden fight that spiraled out of control. But the purchases, the rehearsed excuse, the calculated cleanup, none of it fit that story. The prosecution reminded the jury, this wasn't sudden. This was deliberate. After 6 hours of deliberation, the verdict came back: guilty of malice murder, guilty of aggravated assault, guilty of tampering with evidence, guilty of concealing the death of another. The judge sentenced Leonard to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, plus an additional decade for the other crimes. His parole from his previous conviction was revoked. He will likely never walk free again. For those who knew Tiana, justice could never replace the life lost, but it was something. She had been a woman building her life, working hard, creating a future. Her belief in second chances, her willingness to trust, had been met with betrayal and violence. Her story serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers hidden behind closed doors and the importance of listening to the signs of control and fear when they appear. As we reflect on her life and the devastating way it was taken, we remember Tiana not just as a victim of a crime, but as someone who deserved safety, love, and the chance to keep building her world. Cases like hers remind us why we tell these stories, so they are not forgotten, so we see the warning signs, and so we carry forward with awareness. Because at the heart of every headline, every courtroom, every verdict, there is a person like Tiana whose voice deserves to be heard long after the noise of the trial fades away.